Hey everyone, in this video we are going to be looking at the different ways of solving quadratic formulas and putting them into standard form. Now this is problem number 3. I skipped problem number 2. You can deal with it. I want to see what you can do on your own. So for this first one that we're going to do here, we're going to use the FOIL method to get this in standard form. So again, we're going to go first outside, inside last. We're going to take these two binomials, we're going to multiply them together. The way we're going to do that is the distributive property. So first we're going to start with our outside, which is 8x. So I'm going to take this 8x and I'm going to multiply it by x first. So 8x times x, that gives us 8, and then there's two x's, so that's x squared. So 8 and then 2 x's, 8x squared, that's how we get that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to distribute that again to this outside number. So we're going to go 8x times 2. To get a positive, 8 times 2, which is 16, and there's 1x. So that's how I get that x there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch colors, and I'm going to do inside last. So this -1 is my inside number. Now this is one thing to keep straight in your minds. This 1 is a -1. Don't think of it as a -1, where you are subtracting it from this 8x, even though you are. But in your brain, what we're doing is we're adding -1. So I take this -1 and I multiply it by x. And that gives me -1x. Next thing I do is I distribute it to the 2. So I take the -1 and I do -1 times a positive 2. So a negative times a positive gives me a negative number, and 1 times 2 is 2. So just like that, I have these numbers. My 8x squared is going to stay the same because there's nothing else that's x squared. So 8x squared has to be in my final answer. Now I have 16x minus 1x. These are like terms, so I have to do what they're telling me to do. And it says I'm taking a positive 16 and I'm subtracting 1. And that x is just going to follow along. So 16 minus 1 gives me positive 15x. And then the next thing I'm going to do, the very last thing, is I'm left over with this -2. So I just keep that as -2 here. And just like that, I have solved my problem. Yay for quadratics! Who knew it could be so easy? Now that is one way of solving this problem. If you are a huge fan of the FOIL method, wasn't that easy? Now if you're thinking to yourself, Miss Burt, I would prefer the box method. Guess what? We can do that. Yeah. So we have y is equal to the quantity 8x minus 1 times the quantity x plus 2. So we're doing the same thing as we did before, but now we're using a different method to solve this problem. So I take this first binomial, 8x minus 1, and I put it over here in my box. So 8x is my first term that goes up top, and my -1 is going to be used for this bottom row. So I have to keep the sign with it. So it's a positive 8x and it's a -1. Now on this other one, I have my x plus 2 for my other binomial. So x is going to go in my first column because it's my first term. And then a positive 2 is going to go in my second column. Now you notice I don't leave the positive in there. I could if I want. I could put it right here in the middle just as a reminder. But I don't have to, because if there's no sign, then I'm going to assume it's positive. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute these numbers. So I have 8x, which goes here, times an x. So 8 is my only coefficient, so essentially it's 8 times 1. Remember, if there's no numbers, just a 1. So I have 8 times 1, which is 8, and then x times x for an x squared. Now if I keep going across, I have 8x times a positive 2. So my coefficients would be 8 times 2, which is 16, and then I keep that x. There's no x up there, so there's only one x with my 2 times 8, which is 16. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom row. I have -1 times x. This negative is important. I have to keep it. So it's -1x that is there. Now do I have to have that 1 there? No, I could drop it and just put -x, but right now I'm keeping it in there just as a visual reminder. Then for this next one, I have -1 times a positive 2. If I have a negative times a positive, that makes for a negative answer, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now if I'm going to throw all of this together, I'm going to keep my positive 8x, so I have 8x squared. I have a positive 16x, so I have positive 16x. I have a negative 1x, and a negative 2, negative 2. Now, of course, this is not my last step. I need to combine my like terms. So y is ultimately going to be equal to, there's no other x squareds, so 8x squared is for sure in my answer. I have a positive 16x minus 1x. A positive 16 minus 1 would be a positive 15x. And then I have a negative 2. And all my like terms are combined. That is my final answer. And you'll notice again that my answers for both of these problems are identical. We just solve them in different ways. And that's the beautiful thing about math. There's more than one way to solve a problem. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. I hope this is going well for you.